Yes, hello everybody. So let's start with a show of hands. Who has or is currently running Shopify App Store ads? Can you please raise your hands? So that's, I would say, 50%. And who's running Google ads? Is anyone running Google ads? So quite a bit less. And who's running ads on any other networks? It's like, what are you doing? Meta, yeah. Anything else than Meta? So that's LinkedIn. Anyone? No, I was doing LinkedIn. All right. So I want to start with the intro. So why not App Store ads? So as we just found out, there is just really high competition on App Store ads, which is driving up the prices. But the other thing is also that another problem is also even if in my case I have a Shopify app and there are a couple of keywords that convert really well, but the search volume is not very high. So even if I have 100% visibility on the search volume, it's not enough to really move the needle. And the third point is the creatives that you can do with App Store ads, they're really limited. So it's basically just derived from your App Store listing. And sometimes you want to actually send a message, hey, there's actually this other feature that my app can do as well. So that's not possible with App Store ads. You're really limited to what is already on your listing. So that is a couple of reasons that I think, in my opinion, it really makes sense to look at other ad networks and like Google Ads. And so, but there are a couple of prerequisites for that, which is install attribution. So install attribution has come a long way in the Shopify App Store. It really starts with the dark ages. There was like no support from Shopify for a long time to really know like where was the install coming from. But it turned out you could actually still figure this out if you matched the install timestamp and with the Google Analytics event. But you needed to take the time zone into account. So that was really like the key ingredient to make this working. And you got up to like a 95, a little bit higher percent accuracy and match rate in this event. somebody agrees. And then a real game changer was Shopify introducing measurement protocol. And so what this means is Shopify telling Google Analytics explicitly where the install is coming from. And this data is then clearly visible in GA4 BigQuery data or in your Google Analytics directly if you add a custom dimension. And with this, we now have an attributed install event, but we want more for Google Ads to work efficiently. So let's look at the complete event lifecycle that we have for an app install. So there are two things. There are two axes here, two timelines here. The one is the timeline of the GA4 event. So that is everything that is coming from Google Analytics. The lower one is the app events. So that is coming from the partner API, or that's the event that Mantle uses. So if we start from the left, we start with an ad click. And the first thing is we see in Google Analytics is the page view, the listing page view. Then hopefully your listing converts and the merchant clicks the add app button. This is something we see as well. And then comes this measurement protocol event, so Shopify app installed. So that means the install has been successful and Shopify basically tells you where the install came from. And then we continue on the app event side. So everything is now happening inside the Shopify app. So of course we know the merchant exactly that is installing the app, that's authorized, that then hopefully subscribed to your paid plan, that went through the trial phase, and all that is what we then know. So what we then want to do is we want to use the measurement protocol again to push this data back to Google Analytics. And we then have this, and then we turn this into Google Analytics events. And this is what we need in order to run Google Ads efficiently, because we can use this as conversion events. So to set this up, the first step is, as I just said, use the measurement protocol to push app events to GA4, or use a Mantle extension that does that. Step 2 is to link GA4 and Google Ads, and then import these goal events from from GA4, and then we can use this to optimize our Google Ads targeting. So, for example, we can then use the install event as a conversion goal. What's even better is to use the accept charge event as a conversion goal, because we don't just want installs, we actually want installs that pay us. The next thing is to use the complete trial event. So this is actually an event conveniently provided by Mantle, because what's even better is a merchant that completes the trial, and doing that we can leverage Google Ads 30-day attribution window. So your trial needs to be shorter than 30 days. Then you can actually attribute this in Google Ads to the install. And the best of all is we use a combination of all of the above, because we want installs, we want subscribe to our plan, and we want them to finish the trial. So all of that together we can mark as conversion events, and we can tell Google Analytics, hey, this is what we want. So how to get started running Google Ads? So you can actually start with a relatively low budget. So as little as $10 per day are actually enough. So that sounds very little, but what's actually interesting is with a lower budget, the targeting is actually more efficient in ad networks. Usually you think, okay, you need a big budget to scale it, but it's actually not true, because if you have a low budget, what Google Ads or any networks do is they first focus on this core group where they think it's most likely for these persons to convert. And if that's exhausted, if you keep increasing the budget, eventually this core group exhausts and they go to a wider audience for the targeting. And the next thing you should definitely do is look at your organic traffic and see if you see any patterns. So in my example, this is, so the Shopify app is an integration with Meta, and the Meta Ad Center only supports desktop. There's no mobile version of the Meta Ads Center. And so that means I can eliminate 90% of traffic because it's mobile traffic, and I know for a fact nobody who is on mobile is serious about running Facebook ads. And what I recommend to start with is you can set up different targeting modes, but my best experience is actually with maximize conversions. You could also try maximize conversion value. You can actually also attach, for example, the plan value to those events that you send back to Google Analytics and Google Ads. But my experience is just maximize conversions. That works quite well. To address the elephant in the room, we need to talk about compliance with partner terms. So this is this section here from the Shopify partners terms that you all agree to. And basically it says don't target Shopify as a keyword and don't use Shopify in your ad copy. And on the right side is an example of an ad that is still compliant to that. It's because the header and the icon, that is actually added by Google, not the partner. So Google does it automatically. If you run an ad to Shopify ads, to apps.shopify.com, basically to your listing page, Google just takes this information and fills it in, and there is no other keywords. That's an actual ad where I just unbranded it. And so you can see there's no other keywords or copyright terms in there. But what I actually would recommend, and this ties a little bit in the talk that we just heard before, is to use YouTube ads. So because they actually allow to target specific channels. So you don't even need to bid on the Shopify keyword. You can just give it a list of, you can just like find a list of channels that do Shopify related stuff or stuff that is relevant to what your app does. And with this way, you don't even need to bid on a Shopify keyword. The other thing, what I really like about YouTube ads is there are a lot more formats possible. So one of these formats, for example, is founder story. So if you actually have a merchant background and then became a Shopify app dev, you for certain can tell the story, how this helped you. What I'm a big fan of is the infomercial. So basically, you show a 15 seconds walkthrough of the core feature, what your app does. And so it's actually showcasing in that way what your app can do. And so when Apple, maybe some people remember that when Apple introduced the first iPhone, they were actually showing ads that were demonstrating this pinch gesture. And this pinch gesture, that is not an intuitive gesture. There's basically nothing in nature that like you can pinch and it becomes bigger. So there were actually, so in a way that was like an infomercial where they told people how to do this pinch gesture. And the first time you got an iPhone in your hands, you were doing this pinch gesture and that created this aha moment. And that really paid off for them. And the last thing, another format that you, for example, can do, and that's really classic, of course, is a case study. But all of that being said, don't overcomplicate it. So, for example, I even use 11 Labs to do the voiceover because it's surprisingly hard to speak 15 seconds of continuous voiceover without saying or anything or anything. So that's what I do, and so it's really simple to get started doing that. Another effect of running paid ads is what I call these second order effects. And even if the CPC traffic does not convert and only creates installs, it still has the effect to push your rank up in the Shopify App Store. This is what you can see here on January 6th. It starts because this is kind of where the training phase ended for the Google Ads, and immediately it pushed the 20 spots up in the ranking, and that, of course, increased the organic traffic because you get more visibility in the App Store. And so this is a really interesting second-order effect. Another thing that I want to show you is Google Ads Transparency Center, because a lot of people are really surprised when I mentioned that this actually exists. But ad networks, they have US and EU regulations that they comply to that force them to disclose ads served on their platform. And what's available there is information about the advertiser, the ad creative, the targeting location, and when the ad started and when it stopped to run. So let's look at all the ads pointing at Shopify.com and filter out the ones by Shopify themselves. And we see this here inside the Mantle extension. All the ad creatives that point to Shopify.com. It's quite interesting. It's quite a lot. And you can actually see a lot of big names in here. And what's interesting is that partners have been running the same ad creative for multiple years. So that's actually what I just showed you. This started in 2022. And so sometimes you see the scaling patterns that also becomes obvious. So for example, a partner would start with one creative, and eventually they branch out into multiple creatives, into multiple ad sets. So that's an indication that this actually worked and that they were able to scale it. And also the opposite, you see sometimes that they were running it up to a point, but then they stopped and didn't continue. So, of course, other networks can be implemented as well using the same method. So you can usually implement conversion tracking on top of this GA4 data. Most common other network, I would say, is Meta. And scaling to multiple networks, that can also be more cost efficient, because as I said in the beginning, lower budget can be more efficient because you're only targeting a core group, a relevant core group. Speaking of efficient, ultimately, we always have the question, is it profitable? And profitability calculation with recurring revenue can be super tricky. And the naive approach with this is do it like this. So lifetime value equals MRR divided by churn rate. But the problem here is that the churn rate is not constant over the customer lifetime. So we see a high initial churn rate usually when the merchant is still undecided, they're still kind of trying out your application. And then it goes down over time as it becomes just part of their day-to-day workflow. And so then it becomes really sticky. And the other thing is naively, we only capture churn. We only look at merchants that have churned to calculate the churn rate. So shouldn't we also factor in all the merchants that have not churned yet? I mean, to give you an analogy, is like if you have, say, 10 people and 9 of them are still alive and they're 80, and one of them died with 20, then you would naively say, okay, maybe the average life expectancy is 20 because I don't know how old the other ones are still going to get. And obviously, that doesn't feel intuitive. But we can actually fit this churn against statistical distribution, as it did here. So it's a Weibull distribution. And so with this model, you get a pretty nice fit of this data, and you can accurately predict and model your churn over time. And in the retention curve, you see exactly what I said. It's very steep in the beginning, but then it flattens out. And we can use that to model then our monthly cash flow or a 30-day period cash flow. And as here we have an app that costs, it's $10, $10 price tag. And we see we have this $10 initially, and then it drops steeper, but then it kind of flattens out. So we have this cumulative retention. And then what we need to do is we need to decide after how many days we want to be profitable. And just for the sake of the argument, let's say 180 days, we want to be profitable after 180 days. Then we have a cumulative revenue of, if you look at the orange line, maybe about $60. And this is where we put this all together so that we define the payback period for acquiring a new merchant. We calculate the cost of acquisition for the new customer. And then if the LTV within this payback period exceeds that, this is when we're profitable. So with that, I want to thank you. And let me know if you have any questions or come talk to me afterwards.